Emily, is there? Okay, great. We're recording now. All right. All right. Well, welcome, Ms. Powell. I'm so excited to engage in a weekly data meeting with you today. We are focusing on the assessment that that you administered last week. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you have all of your materials. Go ahead and download the document that's in the Nearpod. And then be sure to upload that document into Cami.
Okay.
So that you're able to share with me your annotations before we proceed. Okay, let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, so last week we planned a reteach for RI KID2, where scholars performed at 40% mastery and 20% near or approaching mastery. And this was prior to the reteach that you conducted. And 75% mastery and 15% near or approaching mastery after the reteach. What actions did you take to reach this goal?
So to reach this goal, I was really intentional about reinforcing those strategies that we talked about last week during our reteach. And I noticed that students were generalizing those strategies to other texts throughout the week. And so I think they were really transferring that knowledge and able to apply those strategies independently.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad to hear that scholars weren't just isolating the strategies from the reteach into just the reteach assessment, but they're transferring those skills across like multiple texts and activities that we see are occurring in the core instruction.
Yes, ma'am.
Block. All right. So now we're going to dive into planning around standard RL KID2. And scholars completed this assessment last week, and the average was 64% mastery. I want you to take 2 minutes to write down what scholars need to know and show to demonstrate mastery of this standard. And you have a know and show chart on the document that you uploaded into Cami.
Okay.
Okay, take about 30 more seconds.
I think I got it.
Okay. So go ahead and share your screen and tell me some of the things that you listed for your know and show for the standard.
So what they need to know to master this standard would be what is a theme or a central idea. They need to know how to write a summary. And then, to do that, they need to know how to read and comprehend the grade level text I put in front of them. Mm-hmm. And to show me that they mastered this, they need to comprehend the text enough to write an objective summary and be able to tell me what the theme or the central idea of the text is.
Okay. So let's unpack some of the ideas that you have on your show side of your chart. So when we say comprehend the text to write an objective summary, what would that look like? What are you looking for in scholar work that lets you know that they're comprehending the text? And this is thinking about both what you want to see in the text and also what you want to see in scholar responses.
So to show me that well, first they have to write an objective summary. So that's, leaving their own personal feelings. So they need to be able to show that through, I guess, like textual evidence. So quoting or putting like actual events and details from the story in their summary.
Okay. So when we talk about writing an objective summary, yes, we are looking specifically for textual evidence. And so what is it that you're looking for as the instructor to know that scholars are using textual evidence to formulate an objective summary?
So I would be looking for, I don't think in a summary you don't have to have like direct quotes necessarily per se, but I'd want to see like character names and maybe some of the same vocabulary or like them rewriting some of those like feelings and actions in their own words. And then of course, I'm going to pull out like that development over time. So like it should be in sequence to what the text in the passage actually said.
Okay. And so there are a couple of great ideas that you've shared that I want to kind of highlight. You mentioned development over time and having specific either keywords or phrases that are lifted directly from the text to support the development of an objective summary. That, of course, summarizes the central idea or theme of the text. So in doing that, there are going to be some things that we want to see in scholars' work, and that is going to take us back to their annotations.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we think about their annotations, specifically, what would you say on the show side that you want to see? So go ahead and take a minute to add that language to your show side, and then I'm going to share with you my know and show, and we'll see if there's anything that we need to add to make it stronger.
Okay.
Okay, and so Ms. Powell, I can't see your screen right now, so you can just tell me, what did you add to that show side of your chart?
So I'm typing in that they need to have relevant annotations that highlight key details and events from the text. Annotations are intentional. I don't know if that's the right.
So when we talk about intentional, elaborate on that really quick.
So that they're not just like highlighting the topics at like the first sentence and the last sentence of a paragraph, but they're really like going in and searching for what the key details are. Maybe even like writing some on the side, like in the margins of, summarizing what happened up to that point, or maybe even how a character's feeling, or we talked about like putting some things into their own words. So I'd be looking for that in the margins.
Okay, great. So I think you captured a lot of really big ideas surrounding the standard. What I want to do now is show you my new and show chart. I want you to think about some of the things that our charts have in common, and then also consider what are some things that I need to possibly add to my chart to make it stronger. So take 1 minute to read through my chart. Okay, so is there anything that you think I need to add to this chart?
No, I think there's things I need to add in my chart.
Okay, and so the thing that we need to continue to keep in mind is that we want to really push for specificity of language in relation to the key ideas that are presented in the standard. And so let's just make sure that as we're thinking about what scholars need to know and be able to do, that we're always leaning back toward the language of the standard. All right, and so now that we have our know and show, let's take a look at the teacher exemplar. And I'm going to share with you a link to my exemplar that you can pull up in Kami. Drop that in the chat. Okay. All right, and once you have that open, just let me know. And I'll give you directions for what we are looking for in the teacher exemplar.
All right, it's open.
All right. So let's take a look at the teacher exemplar, and I want you to unpack the work produced in relation to both the annotations and the responses. Think about what are the keys to an ideal answer, and how does the teacher exemplar align to the standard? Take 2 minutes. Remember, Ms. Powell, we're looking for evidence of 2 things. One, how does the teacher exemplar help to lift out the overall theme of this text? And then how does the teacher exemplar help to develop an objective summary statement of the text?
All right, I think I have some ideas.
Okay.
So I'm noticing that the annotations and the exemplar are coded, and I like that. So they're coded by character and then also highlighting like the feelings that the character was saying. You can see like O was for Oliver and kind of who was feeling what. The highlighting is the character's actions and feelings, and I'm noticing like you're pulling out like changes over time. So like not only events, but you can kind of see like those emotions and how they're changing from the, or they're being highlighted from the beginning of the story to the end of the story.
Okay.
We talked about like that intentionality, and so parts of sentences are highlighted, like not the entire paragraph, so you can tell like they're really reading for what those details are. And then at the end, there's a theme statement that's already written with the evidence that you can kind of use, all the annotations over time that you've already highlighted and written out to back up what you feel that theme and central message was.
Okay. All right, perfect. So you've captured things in the teacher exemplar with regards to the annotations that support with developing mastery towards the standard. What about the responses?
Like in the questions.
Mm-hmm.
So in your show chart, I think you named being able to like justify the process of elimination in order to select the correct answer. And I can see the justifications, especially in question 1, that like that answer choice, then there was a justification of why that wouldn't be the right answer choice. So I can see the scholars thinking about how they got to answer C and not just that they got C correct, but really led them to know that that was the correct answer. And then the same thing in question 2, crossing out that vocabulary. So you can tell that kids were actually reading what the answer choices were and using evidence from the text. Like bored is not the word choice. It was uneasy. So they're able to determine that that could not be the right answer choice because they're not using the correct feelings or vocabulary from the text.
Okay, perfect. And so now let's take a look at our high scholar exemplars. Okay. I want you to think, how does this work align to the teacher exemplar? And what are the gaps between the two exemplars? So take one moment.
Is that in the Nearpod?
High scholar work. It's actually attached to the document that you downloaded in the beginning. If you'll scroll, all of the scholar work is attached.
Got it. Thank you. I knew that.
Okay, take about 30 more seconds, and you're just looking at the high scholar exemplar. Okay, what were some gaps that you noted between the teacher exemplar and the high scholar exemplar?
Some of the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell with like Alexis, it's a little hard to see exactly what she highlighted, but it looks like she's highlighting, but it's not as intentional. Like she's highlighting more like the chunks of events and not necessarily pulling out like the feelings or even like in the beginning, just like how the story started. Like most of it's coming towards the end. And it's just like larger chunks. And then I can see she's doing process of elimination, but I don't really know what her thinking is behind why those are incorrect and why the other answer choice was correct. So she knows what to do, just not as detailed or as intentional as the exemplar or as we'd like for her to be. Dahlia is writing in the margins, which is great, and trying to put things in her own words over time, but just missing some of those bigger key ideas and details. And so just wanting her to read closer at the text and really track the development over time. And then again, like I can tell she's doing process elimination, which is great. I just don't know the rationales for the selection choice. And then Shikari, I think, is the closest to what the exemplar was, because she's highlighting and putting things in her own words, and even pulling out like evidence that this man can't be trusted. So like really thinking through the plot and implications. And then she did write why she didn't select certain answer choices. So I'm happy to see kind of like what her thought process was in selecting the correct answer choice. So she's almost there.
Okay. So in thinking about the gaps between our high scholar work and our exemplar, when we go back to the know and show chart, what are some things that stand out to you as some key errors or misconceptions that scholars have in relation to the standard?
So I still think that one of the key gaps is them just annotating those key ID, like the correct key ideas and details with like characters, thoughts, and feelings and actions that's going to support their understanding or them finding what the central idea and theme is. So I think it's still that connection on the annotations and really being more intentional and purposeful.
Okay. And so I want you to keep that key misconception or gap in mind, and now look to see if that is the same trend as you look at the middle and lowest achieving scholars in that representative sample. So take 1 minute.
So yeah, I think that's the common trend. But I'm also just wondering, like, this is a hard text, and like if our kids can't comprehend it, like how are they supposed to annotate?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's like a lot of vocabulary in here, and like it took me a minute or two to read it. So like, how can we ask kids to intentionally annotate when they don't understand what's going on, or like they can't read and understand what that vocabulary is?
That's an excellent question. And so we have to, and that's why it's so important for us to think about the procedural and the conceptual gaps that scholars have, because the procedural gap will serve as the strategy that's going to help leverage an entry point, so to speak, for scholars into the conceptual when we think about ELA. So that's going to come out when we craft our gap statement and think about like what is the strategy that we want scholars to do as they're trying to navigate this text so that they can pull out the overall theme and create an objective summary statement.
Okay.
So now that you've had an opportunity to look at our lowest achieving scholar work and the middle scholars, I want you now to go back to the know and show chart and identify the procedural and the conceptual gaps. Take 1 minute to craft a gap statement. And again, you're thinking about what gap is going to be the highest lever. All right, and when you're ready, go ahead and just share your screen.
So I said the gap would be understanding grade level text in order to annotate key ideas and details throughout a text. I say text a lot. To support in identifying the theme or central idea.
Okay. So I think that you lifted out definitely the procedural piece. We're not seeing a lot of scholar annotations, and specifically annotations that are true to a particular like structure or pattern, to where you can look at that work to see, oh yes, this is what they're annotating for. And so you name that you want them to annotate for key ideas and details. And then also thinking about that procedural piece is in support of them being able to identify the theme or central idea. Okay, great. Now I'm going to share my gap statement. I want you to take a moment to read it and let me know if there's anything that we need to add to it. And I want you to think, does it capture both the conceptual and the procedural gaps that scholars exhibited in the work samples?
So I mean, I think the procedural is the annotating, which drives to the conceptual understanding of the central idea or theme.
Okay.
I think it captures both.
So do we agree that this is going to be our gap statement?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So now let's go ahead and plan our reteach. Based off of the data, we know that we had 64% of scholars to master this assessment. Which reteach structure do you want to plan?
So because most of my kids did get somewhat mastery, I think that the guided discourse is the route to go.
Okay. And what text do you want to use for the reteach plan?
I think sticking with the Wendy Hill and using a show call because we had some high exemplars that we could put next to my teacher exemplar just to have them like pull out what those subtle differences were. But I do think we have some students who were almost there where the kids could just like identify the gaps between the two.
Okay, great. So just to restate the focus of our reteach, we are going to plan a reteach that is guided discourse. We're going to use a show call with the teacher exemplar and a piece of high scholar work. And we're going to go after the ideas of annotating, with a purpose, and tracking the development of the story or text. Okay. So now that we've set our focus for our reteach plan, let's take 7 minutes to draft reteach script, and I will draft my script as well. While we're creating a script, participants, you all can take a stab at creating your own script. It'll take about 2 additional minutes. All right. Whenever you are ready, Ms. Powell, you can share your screen and go ahead and walk through your reteach plan.
All right, so this is just a rough draft so far, but saying something along the lines of, good morning, scholars. Today we're going to spend some time reviewing our last assessment check and reviewing our annotations. We're going to use 2 samples of our classmates' annotations to guide our conversation. I revised what that was going to do. So I would have both exemplars. I like saying it's a sample of the classmates because then they know it's possible. So we're not going to say that it's the teacher, but they're going to think that both of these samples are classmates' work. And so then using the 2 exemplars, asking them, what do you notice between the 2 samples of annotations, similar to how we did. Some anticipated responses would be that sample A highlighted key events, feelings in the story that use different strategies like highlighting and underlining in the coding system and like summaries in the margins. Then I would pose the question of what impact do you think these annotations have on the overall understanding of the text? So anticipated responses would be that we tracked understanding over time and it allowed us to read more closely. I think I really want to like hone in there because we talked about, you know, some of our students not reading at grade level. And so I want them to see that like using this strategy, like you talked about, gives you that access point. So like I will really want to drive that into that, like this is going to help you understand text, even if it seems really hard. And then pulling then into what details stand out to you as supporting the central idea. So just like Oliver's feelings over time that led him to run away, you know, just kind of pulling out some of those details that they saw. And then what is the central idea of the text? Trust your gut feelings or something along that line. And then kind of stamping it as we read our next text, I want you to be as detailed as we've seen here and annotating for key ideas, details, feelings, etc. in order to support your understanding of the text, and let them know that I'll be looking to see how their annotating skills have progressed over time. And then I just put in there like to stamp again that we use annotations to guide our thinking and understanding throughout a text to support finding the main idea and central idea after reading.
Okay, great. That is a really good draft of your reteach script. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and share my script, and I'll walk through it. And Ms. Powell, if you can pretend to be a scholar.
Just coming in 10.
Walk
Sorry.
through. Let's see here. Let's see, I can make it a little bigger. All right, can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So good readers, read a text closely, examining the narrator's claims to help them identify the theme of the literary text. Today we're going to review how to annotate a literary text for the theme, looking for evidence of a central idea to support with the development of a clear summary statement to capture the theme. Take 3 minutes to review the annotations in paper A and B. As you review these annotations, jot down the differences between the style and structure of the annotations on your paper. Emily, what did Scholar A do?
Scholar A highlighted a few lines in the text towards the end of the passage.
What else did you notice about the Scholar annotation in sample A?
There was nothing written in the margins.
What did Scholar B do?
Scholar B noted annotation directions at the top of the paper. There were specific lines and phrases highlighted to note the character's feelings in the story, changes, conflict, and author's craft. The scholar also traced the development of the text to determine the overall theme of the passage.
When you look at both pieces of Scholar work, which one is most helpful to support your thinking about the central ideas and key details in the text?
Scholar B, because the annotations help me to make sense of the text by tracing the character's development, narrator's perspective, and conflict in the text.
How do you think the annotations developed by Scholar B help you to answer the questions related to the passage?
I can use my annotations to support my thinking about the theme of the text, and my annotations can also serve as textual evidence for my objective summary statement. Ooh, I hope my kids say something like that.
Great. You notice that there are several things that good readers look for to help them identify literary text. They start at the beginning of the text and identify the genre, topic, and jot down the annotation code. Next, they read the text looking for the 4 C's: conflict, characterization, changes, and craft. Third, at the end of the text, good readers jot down the theme or claim. This annotation structure will help you to use the process of elimination when answering multiple choice questions that require textual evidence. Now it's your turn. We're going to read the next chapter of Animal Farm. As you read, I want you to use the annotation directions for finding theme of this chapter, the 4 C's. As you're reading, be sure to read with the purpose of making sense of the text and identifying those key details that support the overall theme of the novel. While you're reading, I'll be checking the Nearpod for annotations related to conflict, characterization, change, and author's craft. Great. I noticed Amanda has already annotated an important piece of this text connected to today's prompt and our main character. I'm looking for 100% of annotations noted in paragraphs 2 and 3 before moving on to page 2. Once you reach the end of this chapter, I'll be checking the Nearpod for your end of text theme note. Before writing your theme statement, be sure to review all of your annotations to make sure your answer follows the development of the text. Tonight, you'll have another opportunity to practice. You'll read and annotate Chapter 9 of Animal Farm using the 4C annotation code we just reviewed as a class. After annotating the text, be sure to develop your end of text theme note and create a 1-sentence summary statement that summarizes the theme of the chapter. Okay?
Okay.
So now, as we think about our scripts, is there anything that we need to revise or add? And first, do you want to go with your script? Do you want to go with my script?
I think I want to take bits of yours and mine. I appreciate how you were much more thoughtful on the rollout and the introduction, and I want to make sure students have buy-in to the process and what they're looking for. So I think I need to look more closely at how I'm introducing this, and then you were much more specific in how you're looking for it. So pulling out Nearpod and checking it throughout the actual lesson so I can see if there are any misconceptions before I want them to try it for homework. So building in that cycle. And then I also am just thinking knowing my kids, yeah, they almost all got it, but I'm wondering if it would be beneficial to type in, I know we said the anticipated responses, but also just thinking through what if kids don't say the right thing and how I'm going to get them back on track so I don't end up down rabbit holes I know I can do. So I think I want to put in here to just yeah, I hope my kids answer, how you've scripted, but I'm realistic and they're probably not. So if they can't get the answer, what are going to be my back pocket questions to get them back in the direction that I want to without giving them the answer, because I know I can tend to do that too. So I just want to be prepared with lots of questions to kind of support their thinking.
Yes. So excellent observation. So I agree. I think before we engage in deliberate practice, we can polish up the reteach plan to take some of the components from my plan to add to your plan, and then also thinking about just the knowledge that you already have of your scholars, especially the high scholars who performed well on this assessment and traditionally on other assessments around literature in your class. Those are going to be the ones that you're going to call on when you're thinking about the anticipated responses for the model or the guided discourse. Okay. So you're always going to have those those scholars that you're going to call on. Already have those scholars in mind prior to. So, you don't go down that rabbit hole. And I agree, there are definitely some back pocket questions. I do feel like one of the questions that you had in your script around, I believe it was Oliver's feelings, yours. I think that would be a good question. That would be sort of like a way to guide them if they veer off as a back pocket question. Also thinking about, of course, questions that are specific to, Oliver's uneasy feeling and how that developed throughout the text. So you may have to add on a layer of additional questions.
Okay.
So let's take 3 or 4 minutes. We'll add in those back pocket questions, polish up that reteach, and then we'll engage in some deliberate practice.
Okay.
And so we fast forward. For participants, here's my reteach plan if you want to download that. Okay, and then Ms. Powell, now that we've finished our deliberate practice and you are comfortable with the reteach plan, when do you think this reteach is going to occur? Is this going to be tomorrow? Is this going to be Monday? What day?
Well, we have that A-B schedule. So I will do some of my kids on Thursday, and then I'll do the other set that following Monday.
Okay. All right. So I will plan to come in and support you on Thursday with the first group, your group A, and we can then, of course, collect the scholar work samples to see if there's a change in their annotations and the quality of their summary statements based off of the reteach. And then they'll give us some time to adjust anything that we need to before the Monday reteach.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the plan.
All right. So I think we've got a plan. All right. Thank you, Ms. Powell.
Thank you, Ms. Alford.
All right. So that is the cut. We're done with our model. All right. So I'm going to give everybody a few moments. If you want to add, actually, I have it on Nearpod here. Want to approve? No. Go ahead and list a few takeaways that you have from this ELA model. And then we'll have opportunity to just share out before we take our break. really great comments here. And there's a couple of you that are hearting comments in agreement. Let's just take a few minutes to kind of unpack some of these. I see, Ms. Cyber, can you talk a little bit about your takeaway?
I noticed that you were building on the teacher's strength. You always went to the positive first. And you were looking for the gaps after the exemplar and the medium and low. And you just kept the standard in mind, kept referring back to it, and everything was very intentional.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Mr. Brame.
Right. I would like to echo what you said, especially the last thing you just said, was I agree with that. There was a push for specificity, especially when looking at the student annotations. We weren't just looking to see if students had done anything. We were actually looking to see what had they done, what was strong, and what was not so strong. And I like that both participants referred back to the standard frequently, and that participants worked independently and then shared their plans so they could spar and talk about the strengths for one another.
Okay. Thank you. And then lastly, Ms. Leggett.
Some of the things I noticed is when Miss Powell kind of started to need extra support towards the beginning of it, you were unpacking and linking that procedural and conceptual gap to what the teacher was naming. So you made that connection for her and reassured her that that's where you guys were driving this work. You also made sure that you committed to those next steps for reteach, and then you established that opportunity to continue support. So having Ms. Powell name in her AB sections exactly when she was going to do the reteach, and then you committed to following up with that support for her. And then the fact that that reteach plan was collaborative. So you took input that you had already put on the table, and then Ms. Powell was able to combine hers to make a really strong product for her scholars.
Okay, thank you for sharing. All right, well, I am this was really exciting for me to be able to model this for you, because those that have been, in Relay, we've experienced a lot of math weekly data meetings, and I think we've seen really almost little snippets of ELA. And so I think just being able to see it as a really cohesive product, I think is just really helpful when we're thinking about connecting the dots. So thank you for sharing your takeaways. And, we are all going to continue to get stronger at doing this work. All right. And with that, we are going to take a 10-minute break. And I want you to turn your attention to the Nearpod. There's some instructions. When we come back from break, we're going to be in content rooms or channels. And so within this channel in Teams, the school leader team channel, there's a math and an ELA. You will not log off of this channel. Thank you, Ms. Powell. So you won't log off of this channel. You'll just simply go to your Teams tab, and then you'll click on either ELA or math channel for breakout room, and it will put you on hold in this main session where you can participate in the breakout. And then once that session is over, we'll all come back together to this session. Okay. All right. So go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Let's log in or go back to your breakout rooms at 10:14. All right.